Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we unpack complex topics and bring you the essential insights.
Good to be diving in again.
Last time, we journeyed through that vast overview of the Apollo space program. I mean, what an ambitious, audacious quest to reach the moon.
Absolutely incredible scale.
We talked about that scale, the sheer audacity of aiming for another celestial body. Today, we're not just zooming in on another mission in that incredible journey, but on a truly pivotal, heartbreaking moment.
Yeah, a moment that profoundly shaped the entire endeavor.
A foundational step that almost derailed the dream, yet, well, ultimately forged its success in a strange way.
Precisely. This deep dive isn't just about statistics or mission timelines, though we'll touch on those. It's really about understanding the deep human element,
The people involved.
the immense sacrifices, and the critical, truly transformative lessons that were learned. The Apollo program, while we remember it as this story of unparalleled triumph,
Moon landing, yeah.
it began with a profound challenge, a significant loss that quite literally redefined its path and, frankly, the whole approach to human spaceflight.
So this is the start of our mission-specific explorations.
Exactly. This particular deep dive is our first mission-specific exploration, really setting the stage for everything that followed Apollo 1.
Okay, so today, our focus, our deep dive, is into Apollo 1. When people think of Apollo, their minds often jump straight to Neil Armstrong's one giant leap. We all know that image.
It's iconic.
But the true story of Apollo, its engineering triumphs, its uncompromising commitment to safety eventually, its sheer unyielding determination, that story truly begins here.
Right here.
With a tragedy that reshaped everything that followed and, in a strange, painful way, actually made the eventual moon landings possible.
And for you, our listener, we're going to unpack the initial goals for this particular mission. What was it supposed to do?
Right.
We'll introduce you to the pioneering crew who are at the forefront of this monumental effort. Incredible individuals. And then we'll meticulously explore the pivotal, devastating event that took place on January 27, 1967.
That date.
By the end of our conversation, you'll understand why this somber, difficult beginning is absolutely critical to appreciating the eventual, monumental, giant leap for mankind.
Okay.
It's a story of how failure, brutally learned, can lead to unparalleled success.
And where are we drawing our insights from today? What's guiding this conversation?
We're primarily leaning on invaluable sources like Apollo by the Numbers, a statistical reference, which is just a treasure trove of data.
Okay, the hard facts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, the Apollo program page directly from NASA, which gives that essential overview and context.
The official take.
And relevant chronologies listed in the NASA History series, specifically titles like the Apollo spacecraft.
A chronology.
So detailed timeline.
Very detailed. These resources allow us to delve into both the human narrative and the precise technical details of this defining tragic moment. Okay, so before we immerse ourselves in the specifics of Apollo 1, let's quickly re-anchor ourselves in the fundamental why of Apollo.
Good idea. Context is key.
You might recall from our previous deep dive that Project Apollo was much, much more than just, sticking a flag on the moon.
Oh, vastly more.
It was a national declaration, an almost existential quest during a particularly tense period in global history, right?
The Cold War.
Precisely. As outlined by NASA, the overarching goals of the Apollo program were incredibly ambitious, multifaceted. They set an almost impossibly high bar for every single mission right from the outset.
High stakes.
Extremely. This wasn't a mere scientific expedition, it was absolutely a Cold War imperative. First, there's the goal of establishing technology.
Okay, what did that really mean? Beyond just big rockets.
Well, it wasn't just about developing rockets for lunar travel, though that was huge. It was about developing and proving the advanced technologies needed to meet broader national interests in space.
Broader interests. Think about creating foundational capabilities. Things that would serve as the bedrock for all future space endeavors. Advanced weather satellites, global communication networks, navigation systems, even potential interplanetary missions down the line.
So building an infrastructure.
Exactly. Building a robust infrastructure of knowledge and hardware, pushing the very edge of what was technologically possible at the time.
So it wasn't just a one-off stunt. It was about building a whole new technological frontier, an entire ecosystem of innovation that would have applications far beyond just reaching the moon.
That's it. It was a massive investment in the future of American engineering and science.
Okay, that makes sense. What was next?
The second major goal was to achieve preeminence in space for the United States. Leadership.
Ah, the space race aspect.
Absolutely central. This objective was deeply rooted in the geopolitical context of the Cold War. After the Soviet Union launched Sputnik in '57
Shockwaves.
and then put Yuri Gagarin into orbit in '61, there was a palpable sense of urgency. Some might even say national humiliation in the U.S.
Right, Kennedy speech.
The space race was very much a proxy battle. Technological and ideological supremacy were on the line.
So being first to the moon.
Was seen as a decisive victory, a way to showcase American ingenuity, industrial might, and frankly, democratic capability on a global stage, proving the superiority of the American system.
Wow. That provided an immense, almost suffocating pressure for success, didn't it?
Unbelievable pressure, impacting everything from budget approvals in Congress to design schedules on the factory floor.
Right. It was about national pride and, yeah, proving a point to the world, but also about projecting power and leadership during a very tense period in history. The stakes just couldn't have been higher.
Absolutely. Then the third goal was scientific exploration of the moon.
Beyond the flag planting.
Way beyond. This involves systematically investigating our nearest celestial neighbor, gathering invaluable scientific data, bringing back lunar samples.
The moon rocks.
Exactly. To expand humanity's understanding of the cosmos, of how planets form, maybe even shed light on Earth's own origins.
So real science.
This wasn't just about planting a flag. It was about true discovery, pushing the boundaries of scientific knowledge far beyond our home planet. You know, fundamental questions. What was the moon made of? How did it form? What could it tell us about the early solar system?
So it combined that competitive geopolitical drive with pure fundamental scientific curiosity.
A powerful blend.
Yeah.
Motivating both engineers and scientists.
And the fourth goal.
And finally, the fourth goal focused on developing human capability.
What does that entail? Like keeping astronauts alive.
That's part of it, but broader.
Yeah.
It meant learning how humans could effectively operate, live, and work within the incredibly challenging lunar environment.
An alien environment.
Totally alien. It was about pushing the very boundaries of human endurance, ingenuity, and importantly, psychological resilience in that setting.
Right, the mental challenge too.
How would astronauts adapt to prolonged weightlessness? How would they manage complex tasks in those bulky suits? What were the limits of human performance under such extreme conditions, millions of miles from home? This required understanding everything from psychology to physiology in ways never before explored.
Okay, let's just take a breath here. These weren't small aspirations, not by a long shot.
Monumental goals.
They collectively created immense pressure on every single aspect of the program, from the drawing board to the launch pad. And they also underscored the inherent, often unimaginable risks involved in such a monumental undertaking. Every single step felt like it had to be perfect.
The margin for error was perceived as razor thin.
Or the consequences could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
This ambitious framework truly defined the stakes for Apollo 1, making its intended role even more critical.
And its ultimate outcome all the more devastating.
Yeah. So to really appreciate the scale of the challenge and the nature of Apollo 1, we need to understand the spacecraft itself. The Apollo spacecraft wasn't just one thing.
Right, it wasn't just a capsule on a rocket.
No, it was a remarkable feat of modular engineering. Really clever stuff. It consisted of 3 distinct yet intricately connected parts.
Exactly. Each part had a specific critical function. A true marvel of mid-century ingenuity.
Like different stages of a journey, almost. Each designed for a particular leg of the trip, but all needing to work together flawlessly.
That's a great analogy. First, we had the command module, or CM.
Okay, the pointy bit at the top.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
This was the veritable heart of the spacecraft for the crew. It was their living quarters during the long journey.
Home away from home.
And the primary flight control section, where they flew the thing.
Yeah.
It was packed with complex navigation, communication, environmental controls.
It's a cockpit and the cabin.
Right. And critically, it was the only part of the entire assembly designed to survive re-entry into Earth's atmosphere and safely return its precious human cargo home.
The only part coming back.
The only part. This was the one component that absolutely positively had to work perfectly for the astronauts to survive.
So that's their ride to space, their home in transit, and their ride back to Earth. Everything else was essentially disposable, right? Designed to be shed once its purpose was served.
Pretty much, yeah.
Knowing that, what kind of pressure did it put on the design and reliability of that single return critical component, the CM?
Tremendous pressure. Unbelievable pressure. Its reliability was paramount. Everything hinged on it.
Okay, so that's the command module. What else?
Next was the service module, or SM.
Service module sounds like the engine room.
Kind of the workhorse, yeah. This component housed the main propulsion system. That big engine was vital for maneuvering in space, for performing course corrections.
Tweaking the trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. And, crucially, for the powerful translunar injection, Byrne needed to leave Earth orbit and actually head for the moon.
The big push.
That's the one. It also contained the electrical power systems, the fuel cells and tanks for oxygen and water, all the life support necessities for the crew during that long journey.
Okay, so power, water, air, main engine.
All in the SM. When coupled with the command module, they formed what was known as the Command Service Module, CSM.
CSM, got it.
And that was the primary spacecraft for traversing the vast distance to the moon and orbiting it.
So the CSM truly was the mothership for that long interplanetary cruise.
Right.
But once they reached the moon, that's where the specialized engineering really kicked in with the lunar module, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And that brings us to the Lunar Module, or LM, sometimes called LM.
The lander. The spidery-looking thing.
That's the one. This was the truly specialized vehicle, incredibly lightweight, visually distinct, designed exclusively to transport 2 of the 3 crew members from lunar orbit down to the moon's surface.
Just 2.
Just 2. One stayed behind in the CSM orbiting the moon. The LM supported the landing crew during their pioneering stay on the moon, providing life support, a base of operations for, a few days.
Their little outpost.
And then, crucially, it would lift them back off the lunar surface to return them safely to the waiting CSM in lunar orbit.
Wow. An incredibly complex machine built for one specific monumental task.
It really was a dedicated vehicle just for landing and returning from the moon.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think, and a testament to bold engineering decisions. The selection of the Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, or LR, flight mode back in 1962. That was a bold, even controversial decision at the time.
Hugely controversial.
Instead of sending one massive, extremely complex craft directly to the moon and back, which was the initial favored approach, direct ascent, I think.
That's right. Direct descent was the early front runner.
Lore meant that components would separate in lunar orbit, the LM goes down, and then they have to rejoin in orbit for the journey home.
An incredibly complex dance in space.
Multiple dockings and undockings. Why go with such a seemingly convoluted approach? It sounds riskier.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And it was deeply debated within NASA. Direct descent, while conceptually simpler, just point and shoot, basically,
Right.
would have required a single rocket far larger than anything even envisioned at the time. The Saturn V was already colossal. This would have been even bigger. Immense technical challenges.
Okay, so direct descent was just too big to build quickly?
Essentially, yes. Then there was Earth Orbit Rendezvous, or EOR, assembling a lunar spacecraft piece by piece in Earth orbit.
Like building the ISS, but way back then?
Sort of, yeah. But that added its own layers of complexity and multiple launches per mission. LARR, championed by a small but vocal group, including John Houbolt from NASA Langley,
Houbolt.
offered significant weight savings. That was the key. By only sending a smaller dedicated lander down to the moon's surface and leaving the heavy CSM, the return vehicle, in orbit.
You save a ton of fuel.
Exactly. It meant the entire system could be launched by a single Saturn V rocket. That made the mission feasible within Kennedy's ambitious timeline land, a man on the moon before the decade is out.
So it was about weight and fitting it on one rocket.
Primarily, yes, it reduced the total mass that needed to escape Earth's gravity. But, and this is crucial, it introduced the unprecedented challenge of lunar orbit, rendezvous, and docking.
Never done before.
Never attempted outside of Earth orbit. A maneuver that absolutely had to work for the crew to get home. So this decision, while ultimately proving correct, highlighted NASA's willingness to embrace groundbreaking, high-risk, but potentially high-reward solutions.
That's incredible. It sounds like they opted for the most technically daring, but ultimately the most practical and efficient path to the moon.
That's a good way to put it.
And powering these different components required different boosters, you mentioned.
Right. The Saturn IB, a powerful rocket but smaller than the V, was used for Earth orbit test flights, like the one Apollo 1 was intended to be.
Okay, the test rocket.
And then the truly colossal Saturn V for the actual lunar missions that would later send humans to the moon. The Beast.
Got it. So this modular design, CM, SM, LM, while ultimately incredibly successful, introduced layers of unprecedented complexity. Each component, each system, each critical maneuver like docking required exhaustive, meticulous testing
Absolutely exhausting.
to ensure its reliability and safety. The sheer drama of the numbers involved in calculating and verifying every aspect of this architecture, as highlighted in Apollo by the Numbers, must have been immense.
Mind-boggling calculations.
When I think about the sheer innovation and the monumental challenge of just integrating these complex, disparate parts, it blows my mind.
It really does.
It's not just a single rocket firing into space. It's an entire system of interlocking machines, each with its own incredibly detailed engineering and operational procedures.
All needing to function perfectly, in sequence.
It makes you wonder how many aspirin bottles were emptied in mission control just trying to get these systems to agree with each other.
Huh? Probably quite a few.
The Apollo Spacecraft News Reference Book from '68 really showcases the immense documentation, the meticulous detail involved in this development.
Thousands and thousands of pages.
It's a testament to the fact that every bolt, every wire, every switch had to be accounted for to ensure not just functionality, but the very survival of the crew. So with this incredible, complex spacecraft and these ambitious national goals firmly in mind, we finally arrive at Apollo 1.
The starting line, in a sense.
What was its intended crucial role in this grand unfolding scheme? This wasn't meant to be the mission to land on the moon, right? Not the first one.
That's absolutely correct. No moon landing planned for Apollo 1. It was officially designated the first crewed mission of the Apollo program.
Okay.
Its primary purpose was not to go to the moon, but to take that crucial inaugural step of putting astronauts into the command module in Earth orbit.
Testing it out in your home first.
Exactly. Testing all the spacecraft systems with a human crew on board in a live, operational environment, proving the vehicle.
Okay. And you mentioned the designation, AS-204.
Right. Well, we know it is Apollo 1 today because NASA later designated it as such in honor of the crew. The specific mission and the hardware itself were officially designated AS-204.
AS for Apollo Saturn.
Correct.
Yeah.
Apollo spacecraft, Saturn IB rocket.
Yeah.
So the pre-flight test that turned tragic was technically a test for AS-204. This distinction is important if you're digging into historical records, like those detailed in Apollo by the Numbers. It tracks things by the original designations. Got it. So AS-204 planned as an Earth orbital test flight, primarily to verify the command and service module's performance with a crew inside.
Performance, handling, life support, communications, the works.
This really highlights it as the inaugural human-crewed flight for Apollo, building directly on all the invaluable experiences gained from Mercury and Gemini,
Lessons learned there were crucial.
but pushing into new, untested territory with a completely new, much more complex spacecraft.
That's the key. It was meant to be the proving ground, verifying the entire human-machine interface for the first time in an Apollo craft.
What specific kinds of tests would they have performed up there had it launched successfully?
Well, they planned a pretty comprehensive range of tests over potentially up to 2 weeks in orbit.
2 weeks? Wow.
Yeah, a long-duration flight for the time. This included validating the propulsion system by firing the service module's main engine multiple times.
Checking the big engine worked. Right. Testing the electrical power generation, those fuel cells, and distribution. Assessing communication systems in orbit, voice and data. Performing trajectory and navigation checks, making sure they could figure out where they were and control where they were going.
Basic spaceflight stuff, but in a new vehicle.
Exactly. And the crew would also meticulously test the environmental control systems.
Life support. Critical.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
How well did the cabin maintain air pressure, temperature, humidity? How efficiently did it scrub carbon dioxide? Basically, could humans live and work comfortably and safely in this thing for an extended period?
So, seeing if all the theoretical designs and ground simulations actually translated into a functional, habitable, and controllable spacecraft?
Precisely. This was a critical transition from the simpler, smaller Mercury and Gemini capsules. Those had shorter duration missions generally and fewer complex systems to manage. Apollo was a whole different beast.
What's truly fascinating here, or perhaps chilling if we look back with hindsight, is that even before this mission ever left Earth, the drama of events and the drama of the numbers, that phrase from Apollo by the Numbers you mentioned,
Yeah, it captures both the narrative and the data.
they were already converging in ways no one could have fully foreseen. This mission, this test, was the culmination of countless hours of design, construction, testing.
Years of effort by thousands of people.
It represented the moment where all that theoretical work in ground simulation would finally be put to the ultimate test, with humans finally occupying the Apollo spacecraft, ready to embark on their journey.
The moment of truth, in many ways.
It was the moment where the dream started to become a tangible human reality.
Yeah.
With all the inherent risks that entailed. Risks that were about to become tragically clear. Every mission, especially these early pioneering ones, I mean, they were pushing the absolute boundaries of human achievement. And they're ultimately defined by the crew, aren't they?
Absolutely. The human element is central.
And Apollo 1, or AS-204, had 3 remarkable individuals. 3 truly dedicated men ready to take that first monumental step for Apollo. They were the face of this new era of exploration.
They really were. The crew consisted of command pilot Virgil Gus Grissom,
Gus Grissom, a name many will know.
senior pilot Edward H. White II,
Ed White, the spacewalker.
and pilot Roger B. Chaffee.
The rookie.
Each of them brought unique, invaluable experience and a profound dedication to this groundbreaking mission. They represented the very best of American space exploration at that time.
And they weren't just pilots sitting back, were they? They were involved in the development.
Deeply involved, especially Grissom. They weren't just test pilots in the traditional sense. They were integral to the design and testing process, constantly providing crucial feedback from an operational perspective. What worked, what didn't, what felt wrong.
Let's delve a bit into who these men were. Gus Grissom was quite the figure, wasn't he? Known for his candor.
Absolutely. Virgil Gus Grissom was a genuine veteran astronaut. He'd flown in both the Mercury and Gemini programs, one of the original Mercury 7. A true pioneer.
One of the first Americans in space.
Second American in space, actually, after Alan Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
Grissom had already flown in space twice. First in Liberty Bell 7.
The one that sank.
Famously sank after splashdown, yes. Though not Grissom's fault, it haunted him a bit. And then he commanded Gemini 3, the very first crewed Gemini flight.
So tons of experience.
Made him one of the most experienced astronauts in the Corps at the time. He was known for his directness, his sometimes blunt honesty, and his keen engineering acumen. He had an engineering background.
Didn't pull punches.
Not at all. He wasn't afraid to speak his mind if he saw a problem, a trait that had earned him respect, but also at times ruffled feathers within NASA management.
He hung a lemon on the Gemini simulator, didn't he? Or something like that.
He famously hung a lemon on the actual Gemini 3 spacecraft after its flight, signifying his frustrations with some of its design flaws and issues during the mission.
Well.
And that same critical eye, that same demand for quality, was definitely turned towards the Apollo Command Module, which he had significant concerns about.
A foundational figure in NASA's early days, indeed. And then we have Edward White. His spacewalk. Just iconic.
Edward H. White II was famously the first American to perform a spacewalk, an extravehicular activity, or EVA, during the Gemini 4 mission in 1965.
I can still picture those photos.
Absolutely breathtaking images. That moment, floating untethered against the vastness of space, just exhilarated, cemented his place in history, and captured the imagination of the entire world.
A moment of pure triumph.
And demonstrated human capability in a completely new dimension. His hands-on experience with EVAs was invaluable, not just for his own crew, but for shaping future procedures for Apollo.
Right, they knew they'd need EVAs on the moon.
Exactly. He brought a first-hand understanding of operating in the vacuum of space, a crucial skill, and he was known for his calm demeanor under pressure. Very steady guy.
That moment, that spacewalk, is truly one of the most memorable images from early spaceflight. Hard to overstate the impact it had. And finally, Roger Chaffee.
Roger B. Chaffee. He was the rookie astronaut on this crew, selected in 1963 as part of the third group of astronauts, often called the New Nine.
So this was his first flight assignment.
His very first spaceflight assignment, a monumental opportunity for him. He really represented the new generation of talent, the bright, ambitious individuals who were ready to push the boundaries of human exploration even further.
But still highly qualified, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. Though new to spaceflight, he was a highly skilled naval aviator and engineer, held a Bachelor of Science degree in aeronautical engineering from Purdue. He was known for being meticulous, detail-oriented, and brought a fresh perspective to the crew. Eager and capable.
So you have this incredible mix, a highly experienced, straight-shooting commander who didn't shy away from pointing out flaws,
Grissom.
a spacewalk pioneer who had literally ventured into the void, and a bright newcomer, an engineer pilot, poised for his first journey into space.
Chaffee. Yeah, a really strong crew on paper.
They embodied the spirit of exploration, the courage, and the immense trust placed in NASA by the American public. The Remembering Apollo 1 resources from NASA. They provide compelling biographies and further details on these courageous men.
Really worth reading.
It ensures that their legacy is honored not just as astronauts, but as individuals whose dedication pushed humanity forward.
And it's vital to remember, these aren't just names in a history book. They were husbands, fathers, sons, colleagues. They were individuals who quite literally put their lives on the line for the advancement of humanity's reach into space, driven by a profound sense of purpose and discovery.
Their personal stories, their hopes, their dreams for this mission, and their ultimate sacrifice. It's an integral, profound, and heartbreaking part of the larger Apollo narrative.
Absolutely. They were the pioneers who helped lay the groundwork for what was to come, making their loss even more acutely felt throughout the program and the nation.
The date, January 27, 1967. It's etched deeply and painfully into NASA's institutional memory.
Unforgettable, yeah.
And into the collective consciousness of the space program. This wasn't a launch day, was it? Not filled with the usual anticipation and roar of rockets.
No, not a launch day. It was intended to be a routine, well, maybe not routine, but a crucial pre-flight test.
A dress rehearsal.
Exactly. A final dress rehearsal for humanity's next giant step. But one fraught with unforeseen peril.
Okay. Apollo by the numbers you mentioned highlights this date. What kind of test was it specifically?
The test in question was specifically a plugs-out test. Plugs out.
Plugs out, meaning unplugged from the ground.
Essentially, yes. This type of test was designed to simulate a launch countdown with the spacecraft running entirely on its own internal power, completely disconnected from external ground systems and all the umbilical cords that feed tower and data from the ground.
Ah.
The idea was to mimic the actual flight conditions as closely as possible, right there on the pad, ensuring the spacecraft's self-sufficiency, making sure all systems were functioning as an integrated unit, exactly as they would be just moments before liftoff.
So they wanted to see if the spacecraft could truly run itself, independent of all the ground support.
That was the core objective.
A crucial step, obviously, but also one that had been plagued with issues that day, as I understand it. It wasn't going smoothly.
No, not at all. To set the scene, the three astronauts, Grissom, White, and Chaffee, were strapped into the command module, that AS-204 capsule.
Okay.
This module sat atop its Saturn IB rocket on Launch Complex 34 at Cape Kennedy. The day itself had been incredibly frustrating for everyone involved, marked by numerous delays, technical glitches. It was dragging on.
What kinds of glitches?
Well, the crew had been inside the capsule for hours already, enduring various issues. There were persistent communication problems, static, intermittent loss of contact between the crew and ground control, really bad comms.
That must have been infuriating.
It got to the point where Gus Grissom famously voiced his frustration over the open loop, quipping something like, "How are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between three buildings?"
Wow. He actually said that during the test.
He did. Captures the frustration perfectly. There were also reports of an unpleasant, sort of sour odor in the cabin that they couldn't quite pinpoint.
Not good.
The tediousness of the test, with repeated halts and restarts for troubleshooting, must have been immense for the crew just sitting there suited up.
So the atmosphere, both literally and figuratively, was already tense and irritating even before the critical moment.
Definitely felt that way from the transcripts and reports.
And what were the specific goals of this high-stakes dress rehearsal beyond just running on internal power? What did they hope to accomplish?
Well, the primary objective, as we said, was to run through the entire launch sequence simulation, ensure all spacecraft systems worked together seamlessly as an integrated unit.
Check the integrate.
Right. They needed to confirm that communication was clear and effective between the crew and ground control, despite the problems they were having. That's obviously crucial for any complex mission.
Absolutely.
And, of course, they were verifying that all operational procedures were sound, identifying any last-minute kinks or issues that could jeopardize the actual flight. It was, in essence, the final dress rehearsal before the actual launch.
The last chance to catch any potential problems before committing to a real flight with people on board.
That was the idea.
When we look back, it's such a stark reminder for us, for anyone really, that even the most meticulously planned preparations, especially when you're operating at this cutting edge of innovation, they carry inherent, often unforeseen risks.
Always, especially with new complex technology.
What's truly chilling here, in retrospect, is how the very feature designed for safety in space, that tightly sealed, high-pressure, pure oxygen environment,
Yeah.
became the deadliest trap imaginable right there on the launch pad.
The horrifying irony.
This wasn't just a simple design flaw, was it? It seems like it highlighted a dangerous blind spot in early space safety thinking.
I think that's fair to say. Treating ground tests almost like extensions of flight, but without fully accounting for the different, in this case far more dangerous, failure modes under terrestrial conditions, specifically ground-level atmospheric pressure.
Can you explain that bit more? The pressure difference.
Sure. In space, the cabin is pressurized to about 5 pounds per square inch psi with pure oxygen that's lower than Earth's atmosphere, about 14.7 psi at sea level. This low pressure reduces the stress on the spacecraft structure and simplifies suit design.
Okay, lower pressure in space.
But for this ground test, the cabin was pressurized above normal atmospheric pressure to about 16.7 psi, again with 100% pure oxygen. This was done to simulate the pressure difference the hull would experience during ascent.
Higher pressure on the ground test.
Higher pressure and pure oxygen. While pure oxygen at 5 psi in space is manageable from a fire risk perspective, pure oxygen at 16.7 psi on the ground is incredibly flammable. Materials burn much faster and more intensely.
So the combination of pure oxygen and higher pressure was the killer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While it had been successfully used in Mercury and Gemini, those capsules were smaller, had less potentially flammable material, and crucially, often operated at lower internal pressures during ground tests, reducing the fire risk. For Apollo, with its larger volume, more complex wiring, and various materials inside, at that higher pressure, it was a ticking time bomb.
A fundamental and tragically underestimated vulnerability.
Tragically so, yes.
Yeah.
So during this crucial pre-flight test for Apollo 204, AS-204, this moment meant for validation and safety checks.
The plugs out test.
Right. That's when tragedy struck on the launch pad at Cape Kennedy. A fire ignited inside the command module.
Inside the capsule.
Inside the sealed capsule. It quickly escalated into a catastrophic event that would shock the world and forever change the course of the Apollo program. The clock showed approximately 6:31 p.m. Eastern Time.
A fire inside a sealed spacecraft during a test on the ground, filled with pure oxygen at high pressure.
Yeah.
That sounds instantly terrifying.
It was.
How quickly did it happen, and what did the crew experience? We have recordings.
We do, and they are harrowing. The fire spread with terrifying, almost unimaginable speed. That pure oxygen environment we just discussed at 16.7 psi
Yeah.
acted as an incredibly potent fuel, almost like a flash fire. It dramatically accelerated the combustion of numerous flammable materials that were, quite frankly, present throughout the cabin. Things like Velcro, nylon netting, foam padding.
Everyday materials almost.
Materials not fully vetted for that specific environment. Crew communications, which were already problematic, quickly devolved. What began as an initial, relatively calm report from Chaffee, the astronaut, closest to the apparent origin point.
What did he say?
Fire. I smell fire. Then almost immediately, Ed White reported, fire in the cockpit, followed by Grissom's urgent confirmation, we've got a fire in the cockpit.
Okay, so they identified it fast.
Very fast. But within seconds, their voices turned to desperate cries,
Yeah.
shouts, indications of intense heat and pain. Get us out of here, was heard,
Oh, God.
followed by a chilling, agonizing silence. From the first indication of fire to the final, fatal loss of communication and life signs. It was over in a matter of maybe 15 to 17 seconds.
17 seconds.
An eternity for them, instantaneous almost for the observers.
That's horrifying, the sheer speed of it. It just gives you chills thinking about it. And what about escape? Could they get out? Could the ground crew reach them in time?
Tragically, no. Escape was impossible.
I
A
would
critical
hope.
design flaw became immediately painfully apparent. The inward opening hatch.
Inward opening. Why?
The command module had a complex three-layered hatch system. The innermost hatch, the pressure hatch made of aluminum, was designed to open inward.
Towards the astronauts.
Yes. It relied partly on the internal cabin pressure in space to push it against its seal, ensuring a tight fit in the vacuum.
Okay, makes sense for space.
But on the ground, during the fire, as the intense heat caused the internal cabin pressure to increase dramatically, it spiked from that 16.7 psi to an estimated 30, maybe 35 psi almost instantly.
Double the pressure.
At least, it pressed the inward opening hatch even more tightly against its seal from the inside, like a cork in a bottle.
So the fire itself sealed them in.
Exactly. It made it physically impossible for the crew to open the hatch from the inside and escape, despite their desperate attempts in those final seconds.
Could the ground crew help from outside?
Ground crews reacted with frantic urgency. They saw smoke, then flames billowing from the spacecraft. They rushed towards the pad with fire extinguishers and tools. But they could not overcome the immense internal pressure holding the hatch shut, nor could they get through the complex layers and latches of the outer hatches quickly enough. It took them nearly 5 agonizing minutes just to get the hatch open.
5 minutes, when the fire was over in seconds.
By then, it was far, far too late. The hatch, designed to be airtight and secure in the vacuum of space, proved to be an inescapable trap on the ground.
So a safety mechanism intended for space became a fatal barrier on Earth. That's just devastating. Such a cruel irony.
The brutal irony, yes.
The very design meant to protect them in orbit sealed their fate on the launch pad.
Indeed. The devastating outcome was that the Apollo 1 tragedy took the lives of Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee.
All three.
All three. The cabin was completely engulfed in intense fire and thick, toxic smoke in mere moments. The official cause of death was asphyxiation due to inhalation of toxic gases. The heat exposure was also extreme. It was an unforeseen, unimaginable disaster during what was supposed to be a routine, albeit critical, safety test.
The smoke, the heat, the inability to escape it was just a horrific end for these pioneers.
Truly horrific.
That's truly heartbreaking. A pre-flight test designed specifically to ensure safety, to identify potential problems before flight.
The whole point of the test.
Instead, resulted in a catastrophic loss of life right there on the launch pad before the mission had even officially begun. It's a profound paradox. A stark demonstration of how the cutting edge of technology can also be its most vulnerable point.
And it raised an extremely important question. A question NASA, Congress, and indeed the entire nation had to confront immediately.
How could this happen?
How could such a devastating event occur, especially given the immense experience of the crew, the billions of dollars invested, the thousands of brilliant minds working on it, and the supposed rigor of NASA's engineering and safety protocols?
Yeah.
It was a harsh, undeniable revelation. It exposed critical, systemic flaws, not just one mistake, but multiple issues in both the spacecraft design and in the established operational procedures. Flaws that, shockingly, had gone largely unaddressed up until that fatal moment.
So this demanded an immediate, painful, and deeply introspective reckoning.
Absolutely. It threatened to derail the entire moon program right then and there.
The loss of the Apollo 1 crew, it sent shockwaves throughout NASA. Across the nation, around the world, really.
A global tragedy.
Remembering Apollo 1, that NASA resource, really highlights the depth of this tragedy and the extensive, unprecedented resources that were immediately dedicated to understanding precisely what went wrong.
No stone left unturned.
There was no escaping the need for a full, open accounting. Not just to understand the technical failures, but also to restore public trust in the program, which was shaken.
Deeply shaken. The subsequent investigation was exhaustive, relentless, and unflinchingly critical. It had to be.
Who led it?
It was chaired by astronaut Frank Borman, who would later command Apollo 8. A highly respected figure. And importantly, the review board included experts from outside NASA as well, ensuring independence.
Good. Not just NASA investigating itself.
Right. And the focus wasn't about assigning individual blame, though accountability was discussed. It was about understanding every single contributing factor to ensure such a disaster would never, ever be repeated.
So what did they find? What were the main factors?
The investigation revealed, as we suspected, a devastating confluence of factors. Not just one thing, but several things coming together. Firstly, and perhaps most critically, was the pure oxygen environment.
We keep coming back to that.
Because it was central. That 100% pure oxygen cabin atmosphere, pressurized above ambient levels around 16.7 psi, remember?
Right, higher than normal air pressure.
Created an extremely dangerous, highly flammable environment. In such conditions, materials that might normally just smolder or burn slowly become hypercombustible. They burn with terrifying speed and intensity.
So it was essentially a tinderbox, and the very air they breathed became its fuel. It sounds almost unbelievable that such a critical system could become a tinderbox. Were there any dissenting voices or concerns raised about the pure oxygen environment or the materials before the tragedy, or was this a completely unforeseen hazard?
That's a vital question, and the answer is complex. There were concerns raised, yes,
Yeah.
although perhaps they weren't fully appreciated or acted upon with the urgency they deserved in hindsight.
Who raised concern?
Engineers within NASA and its contractors, and even Gus Grissom himself, had expressed anxieties about the sheer amount of flammable materials packed into the cabin. They knew it wasn't ideal.
Grissom did.
Yes. He was worried about the fire risk. And the pure oxygen atmosphere, while deemed practical for simplifying systems in space, was known to be a fire risk on the ground at higher pressures. That wasn't the secret.
So why wasn't more done?
Well, several factors likely played a role. Because it had worked without major incident in Mercury and Gemini, there was perhaps a degree of complacency. And the immense pressure to meet President Kennedy's lunar landing deadline before the end of the decade likely led to risks being underestimated or accepted.
Schedule pressure trumped safety concerns.
It's a harsh way to put it, but schedule pressure was undeniably a massive factor across the program. So this brings us to the second factor identified: flammable materials.
What kinds of things?
The investigation found numerous items inside the cabin. Large amounts of nylon netting used for stowage, literally acres of Velcro hook and loop fasteners used for attaching equipment everywhere.
Velcro.
Really?
Highly flammable in pure oxygen. Foam padding in the couches, wire insulation, even spacesuit materials. Many components were highly combustible in that oxygen-rich atmosphere at 16.7 psi.
And these hadn't been tested properly.
These materials, often used for convenience or stowage, had not been adequately assessed for their flammability in that specific environment under those specific pressure conditions. A major oversight.
So a combination of an incredibly volatile atmosphere and then everyday materials that turn deadly in that atmosphere. A painful lesson in material science.
Indeed. And the likely trigger for all of this, the spark. That was identified under wiring and design flaws.
Ah, the ignition sword.
Evidence strongly pointed to potential electrical arcs from faulty wiring as a likely ignition source. The investigation painstakingly disassembled the burned capsule and found evidence suggesting this.
What was wrong with the wiring? They found examples of unprotected wiring bundles running dangerously close to plumbing lines, particularly coolant lines. This made them vulnerable to damage from vibration or chafing, potentially leading to short-circuiting.
Oof.
There was also specific concern about a type of silver-plated copper wire used, which was found to be susceptible to arcing in an oxygen-rich environment, especially if its insulation was damaged. This was seen as a significant engineering oversight. Electrical systems were simply not robust enough or protected enough to prevent sparks in that hazardous environment.
So, a single, unforeseen spark from bad wiring could ignite the entire cabin in seconds.
That was the grim conclusion. And compounding all of this, making escape impossible, was the fatal issue of the hatch design.
The inward opening hatch.
That inward opening hatch. While designed to be airtight for space travel, it proved to be an inescapable trap on the ground. The rapid internal pressure buildup from the intense heat of the fire literally sealed it shut from the inside.
Making it impossible for the crew to open it, despite their desperate attempts.
Correct. A design choice that had catastrophic consequences in a ground emergency. They were trapped.
So even if they knew exactly what was happening in that first second, they had no way out.
Essentially, no practical way out in the time they had. And finally, communication issues were noted as a significant contributing factor.
The problems Grissom complained about.
Exactly. Test procedures were plagued by persistent, frustrating communication problems between the crew and ground control throughout that entire day.
How did that contribute to the tragedy itself?
These issues not only hindered the crew's ability to clearly and quickly report the fire's progression in those initial critical seconds, but they also likely delayed rapid identification and an effective, coordinated response to the emergency from ground control. When seconds counted, the comm system was failing them.
Every second lost was fatal.
In that environment, absolutely.
Okay, if we connect all this to the bigger picture, this is clearly not just a failure of a single component or a simple human error.
No, far from it.
It was a systemic breakdown, a tragic culmination of multiple interconnected factors: design philosophy, material choices, the cabin environment itself, wiring practices, hatch mechanics, communication systems, and maybe even procedural oversight.
A whole chain of failures.
It demanded a complete, painful overhaul of the entire program from top to bottom. Nothing could remain as it was. The sheer level of scrutiny must have been paralyzing for NASA.
Intense is an understatement. Precisely. The detailed reports and bibliographies compiled in resources like Remembering Apollo 1 weren't just filed away.
They weren't just academic exercises.
No way. They formed the critical foundation for drastic and profound changes across the entire Apollo program. The command module underwent a meticulous top-to-bottom redesign, resulting in what's known as the Block 2 version.
Block 2, the safer version.
Dramatically safer.
Yeah.
Flammable materials were systematically identified and ruthlessly replaced with fire-resistant alternatives wherever possible. They called it degreasing the capsule. Beta cloth, Teflon-coated materials, metal instead of flammable plastics. The hatch was completely re-engineered. The new design opened outwards, swiftly and reliably, with a simpler single-action mechanism that can be operated in seconds by the crew or ground personnel. A rapid escape route was now guaranteed.
Outward opening. Makes sense.
And safety protocols were drastically tightened across the board, affecting everything from manufacturing processes and quality control to pre-launch procedures and astronaut training. It created a far more rigorous, ingrained safety culture within NASA.
For you, the listener, this wasn't just a setback. It was a crucible, a fiery trial. The Apollo 1 tragedy taught NASA a brutal, non-negotiable lesson. The very air astronauts breathed could turn a minor spark into an inferno.
A lesson learned at the highest possible cost.
This forced a complete reevaluation of every single material used in a spacecraft. It fundamentally changed aerospace material science forever. That's a less talked about but profound legacy.
Absolutely. The science of fire safety in enclosed environments took a giant leap forward because of this.
The hard-won lessons from Apollo 1, paid for at an unimaginable human cost, became the absolute bedrock of safety for all subsequent crewed missions. It was a brutal education, but one that ensured that such a tragedy would not be repeated. It transformed a moment of profound failure into a catalyst for an unparalleled commitment to astronaut safety. It's almost unthinkable, really, to imagine pushing forward with such a high-stakes, ambitious program after such a devastating loss.
The pressure to stop must have been immense.
The psychological and emotional toll must have been enormous, both within NASA and across the nation. People were grieving, trust was damaged.
Absolutely. Yet the Apollo program, against immense internal and external pressure, did continue. It truly rose, like the proverbial phoenix from the flames.
How did they make that decision to keep going?
The decision to continue was monumental, and it wasn't immediate or easy. There were calls in Congress and the public to cancel Apollo. But ultimately, the leadership at NASA, with backing from the White House, felt that the best way to honor Grissom, White, and Chaffee was to fix the problems and fulfill the mission they had dedicated their lives to.
Honor them by succeeding safely.
Exactly. But it came with an unwavering, absolute commitment to rectifying every single identified flaw, no matter the cost or the time required. No more cutting corners, no more accepting risks that weren't fully understood.
So the program paused.
Oh, yes. The program endured a near-complete redesign and a thorough reevaluation phase. Crewed flights were put on hold. This delayed the first successful crewed flight, which became Apollo 7, by almost 2 years until October 1968.
2 years? That's a long time in the space race.
A very long time. This period, often characterized by the intense scrutiny of the Borman Accident Investigation Board and the subsequent massive engineering overhaul, was absolutely critical to the program's ultimate success.
A time of rebuilding.
Rebuilding trust, rebuilding the hardware, rebuilding procedures. It was a dark, difficult time for NASA, but one driven by an unshakable resolve to honor the fallen and achieve the mission safely.
And it's a testament to that resolve, I think, that even today, the Apollo program page on NASA's website still lists Apollo 1 prominently as the very first mission.
They didn't try to hide it or renumber things.
Right. This isn't just a historical footnote. It ensures that these 3 astronauts and their profound sacrifice are never forgotten. Their story remains a foundational, albeit painful, part of the Apollo narrative.
It's a deliberate choice to acknowledge where it all truly began and the immense cost of those early steps.
It serves as such a powerful testament to the dedication of NASA as an institution and to the nation's unwavering commitment to those original grand goals that initiated Apollo in the first place.
It really does. The tragedy, immense as it was, ultimately forged a safer, more robust, and ultimately more successful program. The Block 2 command module, the redesigned one.
The one that flew to the moon.
Yes. That flew on all subsequent crewed Apollo missions, including the moon landings, was a dramatically improved spacecraft compared to the Block I version lost in the fire.
How was it improved specifically?
Well, obviously the new outward-opening quick-release hatch, vastly improved fire safety with non-flammable materials replacing almost everything combustible, things like beta cloth for spacesuits and cabin furnishings, Teflon coating on wires, replacing flammable plastics with metal where possible.
The degreasing.
Exactly. And vastly improved wiring systems, better routing, better insulation, better protection against chafing in shorts, plus changes to procedures like using a less hazardous nitrogen-oxygen mix during ground tests instead of pure oxygen.
Ah, so they changed the atmosphere for ground tests too.
Yes, a crucial change. This painstaking redesign, fueled directly by the lessons of Apollo 1, ensured that the statistics and probabilities were overwhelmingly shifted in favor of success and safety for future missions.
It underscored not only the drama of events, the emotional and narrative impact of what happened, but also the rigorous drama of the numbers.
The meticulous re-engineering for human safety, documented in thousands of pages of reports and specifications.
For you, the listener, the story of Apollo 1 powerfully reminds us that even monumental achievements often emerge from profound challenges, from devastating setbacks, and from incredibly hard-won lessons.
Progress isn't always a straight line up.
No, it emphasizes the critical importance of learning from failure, particularly when human lives are at stake, and how resilience, combined with a relentless pursuit of improvement, can transform tragedy into a powerful catalyst for progress. It paved the way for future triumphs.
It really is a story of ultimate transformation, showing that sometimes the greatest leaps forward are born from the deepest falls.
Wow. We've covered a lot, but this deep dive, as always, really only scratches the surface of the Apollo 1 story.
There's so much detail there.
It's a moment so rich in human drama, technical lessons, institutional change, that if you're like me, you'll undoubtedly want to learn even more about this pivotal, defining moment in space history.
Absolutely. There's so much more to uncover.
And these resources we've mentioned really allow you to step back in time and dig in.
For those keen to explore further, NASA and related archives provide an incredible wealth of resources. Truly fantastic stuff that lets you dive deep into the specifics of this tragedy and its aftermath.
And these aren't just dry academic texts, are they?
Not at all. They're the very fabric of this history, full of raw data, personal accounts, official findings, and powerful narratives.
Okay, so where should someone begin their own exploration if they want to learn more?
Well, one indispensable resource we've mentioned is Apollo by the Numbers, a statistical reference by Richard Orloff.
The Numbers book.
Right. It's this comprehensive statistical reference giving detailed facts for each Apollo mission. Includes specific details surrounding the Apollo 1 fire, related data tables, crew lists, timelines, a comprehensive timeline of events.
So if you want the hard data, the timelines, the specs.
It's perfect for that. For those who appreciate the drama of the numbers, the meticulous data and quantitative analysis behind the human story, it allows you to trace the specific technical decisions and their consequences.
Okay, for the data enthusiasts and those who want the precise facts and timelines, that's the go-to. What else?
Another crucial resource is Remembering Apollo 1. You can find this easily on the NASA History website.
What's in that?
It's an invaluable compilation. It brings together moving biographies of Grissom, White, and Chaffee, the official reports from the Borman Investigation Board, technical documents, and comprehensive bibliographies specifically about the tragedy.
So personal stories and official findings.
Exactly. It offers deep insights into the event and its profound aftermath. It gives you the human context, the institutional response, and the personal stories that really underscore the sacrifice involved.
That sounds like a vital place for anyone wanting to understand the human element and the official record directly from NASA.
Definitely. Then there's the Apollo spacecraft, A Chronology, Volume 4. It covers the period from January 21st, 1966 to July 13th, 1974.
So it brackets the fire.
Perfectly. This volume, part of the extensive NASA History series, provides a detailed chronological account of the period surrounding the Apollo 1 event and the critical modifications that followed.
What kind of detail are we talking?
It offers a fascinating, granular look at the day-by-day development, the challenges faced, the solutions implemented after the fire. It places the tragedy within the broader timeline of the spacecraft's redesign and improvement. Really shows the nuts and bolts of the recovery effort.
For those who love a detailed historical narrative, tracing the sequence of events and how they intertwined with the program's evolution, this sounds invaluable.
It really is.
Yeah.
And beyond these specific texts, the broader NASA History Office's Apollo Publications collection, it just offers many other in-depth publications.
All right.
Covering the program's management, technical histories of various systems, the institutional response to challenges like Apollo 1. These resources collectively provide a really complete picture of how NASA grappled with this profound crisis and emerged stronger. Showcases the immense effort and dedication involved in overcoming such a monumental setback.
These aren't just dry documents, then. They feel like primary sources and detailed analyses that allow you, the listener, to connect directly with the history.
Absolutely. You can read the memos, see the design changes, understand the debates.
Understand the complex data, and truly appreciate the human stories that shaped one of humanity's greatest endeavors. They allow you to witness, through their words, the immense challenges and the unwavering spirit of those who push the boundaries of the unknown, ensuring that the lessons of Apollo 1 endure.
Well said. Hashtag takes, Chego, check outra.
So, we've walked through the devastating yet utterly formative first step of the Apollo program, Apollo 1.
AS-204.
A mission that tragically never left the launch pad, but left an indelible, profound mark on space history and on the very ethos of NASA itself.
A permanent scar, but also a catalyst.
It's a reminder that even in the pursuit of the stars, sometimes the greatest dangers lie right here on Earth, in the assumptions we make and the details we overlook.
The tragedy of Apollo 1 was a profound loss. 3 heroic lives lost. But it sparked a relentless, unyielding commitment to safety.
A complete culture change, almost.
To meticulous engineering and to systemic improvement that ultimately enabled humanity to achieve the seemingly impossible and reach the moon just 2.5 years later.
Incredible turnaround when you think about it.
It was a dark moment that, through immense effort, painful introspection, and hard-won lessons, led to a brighter, safer, and ultimately more successful future for the entire program. It ensured that no further lives were lost in the subsequent Apollo missions to the moon.
What does this all mean for you, our listener, as we wrap up this deep dive?
Well,
It's a powerful, enduring reminder, I think, that every truly giant leap in human endeavor, every significant breakthrough, often stands on the shoulders of hard-won lessons. And sometimes on immense, unforgettable sacrifice. It's a testament to the fact that progress, especially at the cutting edge, is rarely linear or without cost.
very true. The path is often bumpy.
So, as we continue our deep dive into the incredible successes of the Apollo program in future episodes, exploring the missions that followed this painful beginning, Apollo 7, 8, 11, and beyond, here's a thought to leave you with.
Okay.
How might the memory and the fundamental lessons of Apollo 1, the focus on materials, the redesigned hatch, the safety culture, how might those lessons continue to shape the way we approach risks, innovation, and unwavering commitment in the pursuit of our most ambitious goals today?
Whether in space exploration,
Or medical research, or tackling climate change, or any big challenge right here on Earth? It's a question worth pondering, I think, as the echoes of January 27, 1967 still resonate clearly through the history of human exploration.
they absolutely do. A sobering legacy, but a vital one.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.